هو هذا ينتمي إلى السبب الآخر أن نسب رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. لما العرب عرفوا أن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام نسبه يمتد إلى سيدنا إبراهيم، فهناك علاقة بين سيدنا محمد وعلاقة بين سيدنا إبراهيم، سواء من ناحية العلاقة بين النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام وبين سيدنا آدم، وهنا علاقة بين سيدنا محمد وسيدنا إبراهيم. العلاقة مع سيدنا إبراهيم علاقة مهمة، لأن سيدنا إبراهيم الله سبحانه وتعالى إذ قال له ربه أسلم قال أسلمت لرب العالمين. الإسلام جاء على لسان سيدنا إبراهيم، وسيدنا محمد قال أن هذه دعوة أبي إبراهيم، إني أنا دعوة أبي إبراهيم. النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام إنما قال سيدنا إبراهيم وابعث فيهم رسولا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياتك ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة ويزكيهم. الله سبحانه وتعالى استجاب لدعاء سيدنا إبراهيم وأرسل سيدنا محمد. فالعلاقة بين سيدنا محمد وسيدنا إبراهيم علاقة وثيقة، والعلاقة طبعا هي علاقة الإسلام. عندما ندرس تاريخ حياة سيدنا إبراهيم أو قصص سيدنا إبراهيم نجد فيها دروس وعبر لازمة لكل نبي ورسول. فمن هنا كان التأكيد على العلاقة بين سيدنا إبراهيم وسيدنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام. So the other thing that we need to look at is the lineage of the Prophet Muhammad عليه الصلاة والسلام. The Arabs at that time, they were very much interested in tracing the lineage of people. They would know and they would study, and there were people among them who are very much knowledgeable about the lineage of people. And this is one way of knowing people, you know, who to trust and whom you don't trust, and who belongs to this tribe and who does not belong to this tribe, and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sent Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam to Al-Jazeera al-Arabiya, Al-Arab, they knew where the Prophet Muhammad is coming from. They knew who are his parents and who are their grandparents and so on. More than that, they were able to trace his lineage to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And it is very important to the link between Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Muhammad is very important, because that is the link of the submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Ibrahim was commanded by Allah to submit, and he said, I submit. And in the Quran it says, Huwa sammakum muslimun. He called you the Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that those who are going to follow you are called Muslims. So the name of Islam and the name of Muslimin came from Sayyidina Ibrahim. So it was important for the message of Islam to be linked to Sayyidina Ibrahim. That would only happen when the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam would be in one of the progeny of Sayyidina Ibrahim. So when we go now to the birth of Sayyidina Muhammad, it is almost agreed upon by all scholars that he was born on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal in year 570. And this year was a very important year because they call it the year of the elephant. Just to remind you of what the meaning of the year of this year was, that we talked about the Yemen. Yemen was in the southern part of the peninsula, or the Arabian Peninsula, and it was a kingdom called the Southern Arabian Kingdom. Yemen was not an independent country. Sometimes it was under the Persian Empire, sometimes under the Byzantine Empire. And at the time of the Prophet ﷺ birth, they were under the protection of the Byzantine Empire, and the Byzantine Empire had an agent country in Ethiopia. What's now Ethiopia was Abyssinia at that time, was controlled by a Christian king who pledged allegiance to the Byzantine Empire, but they were but their faith was a bit different from the generally accepted Christian belief. They did not believe in the Trinity. They believed in that Jesus, may peace be upon him, has a single identity. It's not that they don't believe in the Trinity. But the Byzantine Empire, they tolerated this because they were able to use these people for their advantage. So the king of Yemen built a church, a big church in the Yemen, and he wanted to make the Arabs pay pilgrimage to this church rather than going to Mecca, because there was economic advantages for this. And he marshaled with a big elephant, army of elephants, to conquer the the Arabian Peninsula and to destroy the Kaaba so that the church would replace that place. And there are lessons, I'm saying this because there are lessons that we can learn from this. And one of the lessons is that the interaction between the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Talib, and the king. When the king came, all the people, they ran away because they were afraid of these elephants. They didn't know what to do with them. So they ran away, and but Abu Talib came to meet the king, and he was admitted to the presence of the king. And Abu Talib was a respectable person. He was in control of the beer of Zamzam. So the king asked him, what do you want? And he said, I want my herd of camels. Your soldiers took my herd of camels, and I want it back. And the king was really disappointed, because he said, well, I'm disappointed that a respectable man like you would come and worry about the herd of camel while I'm going to destroy the Kaaba. And Abu Talib very eloquently said that I am, the herd of camel belongs to me, I am the Lord of the camels. But the Kaaba belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's the Lord of the Kaaba, and He's going to protect it. So it shows that the Arabs at that time, they knew the victory is, in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At that time, when it was very difficult for them, they are being attacked and so on, and this is something that they haven't seen before, these elephants, but they would say that Allah is the Lord of the Kaaba. They did not run for Allah and Uzza and so on and pray to them. They prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this shows that because of the fitrah of these people, they were able to see the truth. And those who did not believe in Islam at that time only rejected Islam because it stood in between them and a certain interest. And we talked about Abu Jahl last time, and how he refused Islam because of the competition between his clan and the Prophet ﷺ clan. So it shows that these people were living according to the fitrah. It also shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the Kaaba. Nobody stood between the Kaaba and this army that's coming. But because it is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was protected by a miracle. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does bring about miracles when He chooses. But the only way that the Kaaba was safe is by the interference of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and preventing these people from. So one of the things that we, when we talk about miracles, we know that miracles happen. We know that the prophets and messengers were endowed by certain miracles from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did experience or did practice or brought about some miracles. But in our case, these miracles are really transient in nature. They are we should not focus on them a lot, because we have the biggest miracle of all. The Quran is the biggest miracle of all, and it is a miracle that it's a material witness to the message of Islam. We don't need to talk about supernatural powers when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us something that we can hold in our hands and we can read with our eyes. And it is lasting till the day of judgment, and it has not been corrupted or changed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Inna nahnu nazzalna al-dhikr wa inna lahu lahafizun." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to keep this book intact, and we know that the book has been kept intact, and the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been fulfilled. So this is our miracle that we have to really talk about all the time. It is not the other miracles, while we are believing them, but we should really put them in perspective. These were miracles for people who have seen them to believe them. But if you tell somebody about a supernatural thing that happened and they haven't seen it, it doesn't really make much sense to them. We as believers, we believe in it and we get impressed by it, but it is simply because we believe that it happened. ولد الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام في 12 من ربيع الأول، وكانت ولادته في عام الفيل. وعام الفيل كان العام الذي حاول فيه أبرهة هدم الكعبة، ولكن الله سبحانه وتعالى وقف في طريقه وأنقذ الكعبة من هذه الحرب.
عفوا
من الأبرهة.
نعم. أبو عبد المطلب. أنا عايز أسأل أبو طالب.
حضرت جد الرسول
عبد المطلب. أنا آسف.
جزاك الله خير.
يعني I make these mistakes very often, and I usually say it's because of my age. So جزاك الله خير. Yes, عبد المطلب. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ birth, they used to bring these kids to the desert to be nursed by people in the desert, again to foster these characteristics which the desert promotes. And there are the story about the women who came to pick up babies to nurse them, and the Prophet being born to a poor family, and that his father was born orphan, made him not a likely candidate. But one woman, Halima Saadiya, she didn't want to go home empty-handed, so she took the Prophet ﷺ. And that was an opening for the great blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that came and showered her and her family. Her life changed overnight by the things that happened while the Prophet was there. The Prophet ﷺ was born orphan because his father died before he was born. And we could think about this a little bit. The Prophet ﷺ was born orphan. His mother died when he was 6 years old. So there was, in a way, there was no influence whatsoever from the parents on the child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised Sayyidina Muhammad and prepared him to be a prophet, free of any influence, because if there is a father, then the father would have some influence on the child, especially in an environment like the Arabian Peninsula. And the flip side of this is the fact that all his sons died when they were young. So it's part of the preparation of the Prophet ﷺ, and everybody agreed that the Prophet ﷺ